Hello and welcome to the Through the Pain podcast. This is a place for chronic pain and chronic illness warriors to dare, dance, and dream through the pain.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another great edition of the Through the Pain podcast today. Today, I am so honored and privileged to have Sickle Cell Warrior, musician, advocate, the man that had 2 collapsed lungs and he bounced back. I have with me today Lance Jasper Jones. Thank you so much for being a part of the Through the Pain podcast. And I forgot to mention, you also were interviewed by Revolt. So, and you have Jasper House. I'm so excited about talking about this. Please say hello to the Through the Pain audience. And just thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for that intro. Gosh. You talking me up a little bit. I gotta get my P's and Q's right for this, But thank you so much. You're doing some great stuff out here. And I'm glad that I could just be a part of what you're doing.
I'm just glad for you to be a part. Jasper, I'm like Jasper House. I'm a little nervous right now because
let's get comfortable. Let's get comfortable. Should I take off my coat?
I'm nervous right now because when I see as sickle cell advocates go, I think you're top tier.
Thank you.
And I
consider you top tier. I told you before, pioneer warrior right here.
Thank you. I think you're top tier because you incorporate mental health into sickle cell advocacy. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So a little background. I'm a graduate student, getting my master's currently in clinical psychology. And that psychology road started, I was doing a lot of volunteer work here in Los Angeles. And I was being a counselor, and I was working with the age group of like young adults, young teenagers, 13s to 14, 15, 16, and like 17. And we would have these conversations. So like each camp week, I would have about 9 to 10, young teenagers and who all have sickle cell, all young brothers and sisters. And one of the main things was, well, what do I do? When I become an adult, what do I do? Who am I? And I would say things like, what do you want to do? And they have these dreams and then say, well, I can't do that because of sickle cell. For example, one of my kids called me one time and said, Lance, I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to get a job where sickle cell doesn't mess me up. And I told him, I said, hey, man, you could be playing video games. You could be doing anything specific to what you love, or just something that's real, not too exertive, and you can still go into a crisis. Sickle cell is still going to be there regardless of what you're doing in life, And so it was in that essence that I noticed sickle cell patients, a new generation, not our generation, but the new generation of sickle cell patients were simply giving up at an early age. They were becoming complacent, not wanting to go full throttle and live. And if we know anything about this life that we've been given, is that it's a gift, and yes, there are stigmas placed upon us that affect our mental health. For instance, a doctor telling myself that, you were supposed to die at 7, or telling our community as a whole what our life expectancy is and what these capabilities are for us, or the limitations actually are for us. We embody that and we stop living. We just start waiting on, our ticket to die, basically. And At the time, I had only a associate's degree in communications, specifically in speech and writing, creative writing, and I just instantly made a career shift from going into, like, I was doing all this music stuff at the time, and I just made a career shift and said we have to start talking about sickle cell and mental health, because sickle cell is a long-term chronic condition that you're born with it. It's not like cancer where, oh, I developed cancer. Now I have this ideal of being a cancer survivor. You see what I'm saying? We're warriors. You know, the survivor part is not in, after sickle cell right now, currently. And that attributes to our mental health, just in that philosophy space. However, we have to deal with real physical elements of sickle cell, which is pain, instant pain, extreme pain, disabling pain. And it takes you out of your normal routine. Like, you could be hitting your stride in school or in sports or in your career, and boom, you go into a crisis, and now you're off balance, immediately for the next year, and it takes you all this effort to even get back to the peaks that you were. And then for that cycle to continue happening, every other year, or for instance, for some kids, 3 times a year. When I was a child, 4 times a year. As an adult, twice a year. Along with that, surgeries. I've had 10 surgeries on record. I'm only 33. You see what I'm saying? And you're all constantly put in these life, changing circumstances, that not for one, you got to make life decisions in the ER, advocate for yourself, whether you need this or that, or can they do this or that. But then also in your personal life, some of us are husbands, fathers, mothers, wives. And to try to keep up with all that and the responsibilities, it just weighs a toll completely on your mentality and your perceptions and how you're dealing with all of this. And one of the main aspects as a clinical psychologist that I'm focused on right now is medical PTSD, which is the constant having to go through the ER, fighting for your life. We all know about the discrimination that also waits for you there. And you don't know going in if you're going to come out. And you don't know that every time you go. Your parents don't know that every time you go. And sickle cell, again, is we're learning on the fly. There's not a lot of education there either. So there's no roadmap. There's nothing that says this is how you do it. These are the medications. You can be okay. There's none of that. It's just very, right now, detrimental in philosophy. And that's being driven into our community, our warrior community. And so mental health, I believe, is a major aspect with dealing with anything, dealing with poverty, or, going through any trials that you're going through, or trying to obtain any goal that you're trying to obtain. Mental health should be at the forefront of any of that. And when you're dealing with an illness, it should definitely be your perceptions on that and how you're going to deal with that, how you're going to receive, things, how you perceive taking medication, new medication, changing medication. How do you perceive all of these things, attributes to our mental health? And it really starts within our youth, before they get into adulthood, before they give up and stop having, high adherence to their medical communities, and going to the doctor and getting, their labs done and taking their medication on time. All of that starts, within childhood when you're dealing with sickle cell. So it's very important that, I felt that it was very important that mental health was at the forefront of sickle cell.
Wow, that's a lot. So all of the interests that you mentioned, mental health, you had talked about medical PTSD. These interests were those the thoughts or the initial, was that an initial process, if you will, that started the birth of Jasper House Warrior Incorporated?
Yeah. So I was in undergrad, and we actually had an assignment, a group project to develop a program, a psychological program, sort of like a peer group type thing, that could be implemented within any existing organization. And so at the time, I had chose an organization that I was volunteering for here in California, which was the Sickle Cell Foundation California of California, and we built out a group for parents. We designed this big, program for parents to have parents help each other who are dealing with sickle cell. And as you know, caregivers take on so much. It's not just the patient, it's caregivers, it's the whole entire family that take on so much when it comes to having a child with sickle cell. So it was then that I saw there could be, a bigger style of umbrella and advocacy trend that could go in that way. And yeah, so then, we developed Jasper House Warriors, and our intent was straight out the gate, we did a partnership deal with Picnic Health. And what Picnic Health does is they help provide your medical records directly onto your mobile device, and you can access them at any time. And so we felt that that was important because often we're just being bounced around and we don't really have control of our data and our information and what's what. We just go to the doctor, and Picnic Health showed us how it could just be a great learning tool, as well to track, what's going on with you and things like that. And then also an advocacy tool. And I thought that was important pertaining to mental health because I like to travel, being a musician and things like that. And we want to get out and get around, but we can't carry our medical stuff, just in a briefcase or a folder to say you get into a hospital, in a foreign country to say, oh, I have sickle cell. What if they don't know how to treat sickle cell and things like that? So it was important to have that medical access directly on your phone at any time because they might not understand sickle cell, but they understand medicine, and they could understand, what you have been taking, what's your regimen, things like that, just simply through your medical records. And so, yeah, Jasper House just developed strictly out of, being an undergrad, looking at, and being a volunteer within the community of sickle cell and seeing where we were failing, basically, as a sickle cell community, and why were kids falling off? Why were we still having such a young mortality rate? Here in Los Angeles is just now getting to 43 years old on average for a sickle cell patient. And, and a lot of that, I think it's just simply a lot of our patients are giving up. A lot of our patients don't have the right access because it's just simply hard to go through the mundane stuff every single day and think, yeah, mentally, I can continue to go with this. You go to the doctor, they say, oh, well, now you're dealing with this. You have iron overload, or you might need a hip replacement, or, you're just like, okay. Eventually you're going to hit a wall and say, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this no more. And then once you get there, where do you go? Also with the stigmas in our community, right? Oh, nobody wants to be labeled seeing a therapist and, doing all that type of stuff. So it was important to tap into the next generation immediately with Jasper House and say, therapy is good. You're already going to the doctor for your physical. Let's go to the doctor for your mental.
Well, before I ask my next question, I just want to shout out Picnic Health. If you're interested in Picnic Health, please look at the show notes if you want to access your medical records. You don't necessarily have to have sickle cell. If you have any chronic disease or you don't have a disease at all, it's very important to access your medical records. If you're in Switzerland, if you're in California or Boston like me, you can have it ready and available at your fingertips. So log on to picnichealth.com for more information. So my next question, you talked about hitting the wall or hitting a wall. what do you do? What's in your toolbox? What's in your arsenal when you felt like you hit the wall?
So I want to say, first off, burnout is real. Burnout is real. I think I reached, just speaking from experience, I reached burnout over this last year, dealing with the pandemic. I had two surgeries during the pandemic, back to back. And that each one required like 6 months of rehab. Um, and so I was doing that while also being in school, in my master's program, trying to maintain this 3.9 that I have, and took no days off, none of it. And burnout just hit so hard. So burnout, it manifests mentally, right? So
Wait, pause.
depression.
I just got to pause for a minute. First of all, have grace with yourself because you have a what? A 3.9. And I wanted to congratulate you for actually doing that, because a lot of sickle cell warriors do not even make it through high school. So, I mean, you're amazing. You can continue, but I wanted you to have a little bit of grace for yourself. You're doing it.
Thank you so
I'm proud
much.
of you.
Thank you. That means a lot. So back to burnout, burnout manifests mentally as far as like depression. You lose interest just in everyday routine stuff. And so it's important to develop self-care toolbox, and specifically with sickle cell, taking breaks from things that I like to do, of course, music, right? Music is like my sanctuary. It's one thing that it's mine, Growing up, you couldn't play sports, you couldn't do this. They all these limitations because of sickle cell. Music became that thing, became my home, my sanctuary. So besides that one hobby or passion project that you have, good people, people in this world, we have people that will just drain your energy, but we have people that give you life as well. So good people, good food, and simply take a break if you have to, and if you can, and breaks could be easy. It could be a staycation, you could just get away real quick, new location, new community, hang out there for a weekend or so. But then also get a therapist. Simple, talk these things out. Get a mentor if you not want to get a therapist. Get a coach, because we're all going through high stress stuff. The older you get, the more stress. You're developing families. You're going further into your career. So it's not just medically with sickle cell patients that they're going to eventually meet burnout. It's going to be just in total, their whole life, and putting sickle cell on top of that, the pains, the constant mental worries of each day. You're going to meet burnout. So it's important to have some form of self-care routine. I like to meditate every morning. I meditate about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much meditation I need that day. If I'm feeling really, hyped up, or I could feel like maybe could go on to pain because I'm really stressed and things like that. I just quiet everything down, turn it all off. I'm a music man, but turn it off. And so that's one way. One of my biggest ways is meditation. It really keeps me balanced, quiets all the noise, quiets my thoughts that says, oh, you have sickle cell, you can't do this, or you need to drink that water, or you didn't take your medicine last night, or so yeah, meditation is in my toolbox. Good people are in my toolbox. Good food. I love to cook. Good food is in my toolbox. And I like to journal. Of course, I'm a writer, music, and I found mentors, and ironically, one of my mentors is my longtime blood donor. And so, just run things by them all the time because they know what you're going through, or even the sickle cell community, find somebody within the sickle cell community, like one of us, and talk it out and say, yeah, because we would know what you're going through before anybody else, not just in your life and your careers, but the fact that you have sickle cell and you're trying to have a life and a career. um, so yeah, in my toolbox, all those things.
That's a hefty toolbox.
It has to be.
It
has to be.
Yeah.
Sickle cell is a pretty heavy bag
Yeah.
to carry.
Yeah. It kind of does a number on us sometimes, but we do get through it. And you, sir, you are, as I said before, you a musician, you are a writer, you are, on track to being a clinical psychologist, and you're doing all of the things. You have your own organization, and I want to honor you. And you don't know that this is happening, but by the time this show is recorded, we're going to have a Through the Pain shirt just for you. And in honor of your song Ambition, we're going to have Ambitious Through the Pain. And that is in honor of you. And proceeds will go to Jasper House Warriors Incorporated. So that's
amazing.
Is in honor of you. You are ambitious through the pain.
Thank you so much.
So again, I just want to thank you for coming on. My last question. What is in your future and what are the plans that you have for Jasper House Warriors Incorporated?
What is in my future as a person with sickle cell? Well, with Jasper House, the main thing is to help the community, period. That's all I care about, is to provide and build networks of Black psychologists, sickle cell psychologists, and to be able to house a space for sickle cell patients to come and receive, therapy in a multiverse ways. Therapy is evolving and it's looking different every day. And how we can conduct therapy is no longer you sit on the couch and you have a therapist there with the notepad. We can really do some interesting things now within therapy. So I look for Jasper House to be at the forefront of just all the innovations of mental health going forward within our country, but then also within the sickle cell community itself. And hopefully, of course, in the future, we're a staple, just like yourself. And people are, not just sickle cell patients, not just caregivers, but just the whole entire, population of people are actually accepting mental health as a staple to your healthcare in general. I feel like mental health is a lot of what plays a lot of our community as it is now. Even with racism, right? It's all about how we see each other, how you see yourself, what you're dealing with, things like that. So I'm excited for Jasper House. We're newly incorporated, as of a couple of months now, and I'm excited for this journey. It's important to say, hey, I have a journey as a person with sickle cell. We're not being told these things at a young age. We're just simply managing our sickle cell care. But I'm excited to have a journey, the people I may meet, like yourself and things like that. And so that's what I see. That's what I'm hopeful for the future.
So I just want to end by saying this. I ask that question to every sickle cell warrior that I meet because I live by Jeremiah 29:11. God has a hope and a future for you. And sometimes we warriors don't really think about our future. And it's important for anyone who's listening now, and I want to press upon this to you as well, Lance, that you've done so many great things, but your future continues to burn bright. And you're 33 now, you're going to make it. You've had 10 surgeries, but you're going to make it. And you're here to help someone else. I mean, you're helping me. So you're
helping me.
You're here. I want to just, let you know that you're here to help other people. You're here to help someone that's in the audience or a listener right now, or someone who's watching the podcast right now. I'm going to be 39. I'm going to be 40 this year. Like, it's mind blowing, right? So with all the things of, doctors telling us that we wouldn't make it past 7, we wouldn't make it past 18. And then the next one was like 25. And then after that, it's 40. So now I'm like looking at 40 in the face, and, there's still a future after that. There's still work that needs to be done. So I wanted to say that with you and leave that with you today. But is there anything else that you want to leave with our listeners? Do you want to tell them your website, where they can find you, where they can find your music?
So JasperHouseWarriors.org. You can check out all the Jasper House stuff that we're doing there. LanceJasperJones.com. You can find all my stuff, including music, any publications there. And I live by the motto called Once Again It's On. It's in all my music. And it's just basically you tackle each day. Each day is a journey. You never know what could happen in that day. So we wake up, we say, once again, it's on, and we get it. And I just want to piggyback off of what you said. Our future is there. It's for the taking. It's burning bright. They don't tell us this in the doctor rooms and things like that. It's not 7. It's not 25. It's not 40. It's forever. And we can make a difference in this world for generations to come.
Lance Jasper Jones, everybody, thank you so much for being on. And thank you for listening to another great episode of Through the Pain.
For tools, merchandise, and additional information, log on to our website, www.throughthepain.org. This has been a Public Praise Media production.